Now, with pleasure, introducing on today's show, I'm joined by Ivan Doroschuk, who's the main man from Men Without Hats fame, who has some new material out he wishes to share with you. Welcome to my show. Looking forward to interviewing you today. How's life treating you?
Very good. Thanks. Nice to be here.
That's great to hear. Where are you situated in the world right now?
I'm on Vancouver Island, just off the coast of Seattle.
Very
So
nice. What's the weather like over there?
today it's raining. It's a bit gray, but
Yeah.
it's usually quite nice here.
Fair enough. You need a bit of rain sometimes. And can you
Yeah.
just tell me and my listener, about your earliest musical memory? Do you remember when you kind of began singing and songwriting?
Well, I grew up. I was a child of the '60s and '70s. I was a teenager, but in the '60s, I grew up listening to the Beatles, and I always say that they're the template that I used to write songs. I took piano lessons. My mother was a music teacher at McGill University in Montreal. And so we took piano lessons, but they were nice. My parents were very supportive, and as long as I spent an hour every day at the piano, they didn't care if I was practicing scales or learning my pieces. So that's when I started writing songs, actually, just fiddling around and learning Beatles covers and writing my own stuff. So that's it. All started from there.
Happy memories. Of course, 1983 was a memorable year for you because, you had the Safety Dance and I Got the Message. Do you look back fondly at that time and how music has like rapidly evolved since then?
Oh yeah, yeah. I those are great times, very exciting times. There was a lot of new things happening. It was the dying days of disco and classic rock, and so there was a DIY kind of attitude in the air, and everybody was seems like everybody was forming a band. You didn't have to be a virtuoso. You just needed to have a cool wardrobe, a nice hairdo, and a cool pair of shoes, and you were on your way.
Mm.
And no, there was a lot of great memories, and you hear it today too. And it's still there. The '80s influence in modern pop music is undeniable. You can hear the big drum sounds from the '80s and the synthesizers and robot voices. So I think there's a resurgence of love for everything '80s
Yeah.
too. They were exciting times.
Lovely. And we've got some new material out, which we'll talk about very shortly. And people like, to look back and reminisce. And, when you've got those songs, it's always a joy to kind of like, you know, look back and perform them on stage.
Yeah, no, it's great now. When we play live, we have the good fortune to see our original fans are there. They bring their kids a lot more often than not. We're bringing their kids and sometimes even their grandkids. So it's really turned into a family affair, and we're blessed to have been able to cross generations and have a few of our songs embed themselves in popular culture. Shows like The Simpsons and especially shows like Glee here in America have brought our music to a whole new generation of listeners. So we're very fortunate.
That's ace. When you're performing live, do you recognize some of the faces in the crowds?
Yeah, we do. The beards are a bit longer and whiter, but we do see some of the people have been following us for quite a while now, so it's great. We love performing and we love being out there, and we have a great bunch of supporters, so it's awesome.
That's ace. And on to today, the status quo. Can you just tell me about your new single release called Glorious Days, Glory Days? It has that electronic, feel to it, bringing it in line with the 2020s.
Yeah, no, it's and it also harkens back. It's a follow up to our first single off the album. The first single was "I Love the '80s," and in "Glorious Days" just sort of continues the same message as that one. Is just giving people more of the '80s stuff that we're known for, and the music that we love to make. And it's all about the past, but also the present and the future. So it's doing well. We're having fun with it.
Best of both worlds, then.
Pardon me?
Yeah, best of the both worlds. You get like the old meets the new.
Exactly, exactly. That's it.
Cool. And have you managed to shoot a music video for Glory Days, Glorious
Yeah,
Days?
we just did it. We just finished. It's going to be out this week, and it's the same producer who did our video for I Love the '80s. I Love the '80s has already garnished us about 1.5 million views on YouTube, so we're really happy about that. For a band that hasn't done a video in 40 years, we we're quite happy about that. We were known for the Safety Dance video anyway. That was a kind of a classic 80s video, and it was one that served us really well too, because I mean you can kind of look back now and look at 80s videos and have a bit of a chuckle at the hairdos and the clothes and the styles and everything like that. But the our video for Safety Dance, I think, took everybody by surprise. They were expecting a new wave John Travolta to come out there and teach them how to do the safety dance. So when they saw this Peter Pan figure, you know, dancing through the English countryside with Morris dancers and dwarves and crazy women, and everybody was taken for a bit of a loop there. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the video has endured. You can still watch it today and not really kind of pinpoint when it was done. It's like watching a Western or something like that. You can't really tell when it was shot. So I think that's one of the great things about it. It was very
Timeless.
instrumental. Yeah.
And it's we very much look forward to your forthcoming video, so we'll look out for that. And with the artwork as well on your latest album release called On the Moon as well, it shows a man on the moon against a backdrop planet Earth. Where did this idea stem from?
Well, we're just we've toured more places now since I put the band back together about 15 years ago. I put the band back on the road, and we've toured to more places and seen more people, done more shows than we did back in the 80s. So I guess the moon is the next stop. We're ready to go.
And if I can say so myself, a little bit of a career revival for you guys then.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. Like I said before, there seems to be a resurgence in everything 80s. It's kind of the new disco, like in clubs all over the world now. They're replacing disco nights by 80s nights, and I think it boils down to the music. I just think there's a lot of great songs that came out of the 80s, a lot of great sing-alongs and a lot of great melodies. And so I think people the younger generation today is still appreciating it too, because I think their parents grew up and when they grew up their parents were listening to 80s music. It's one of the first generations that's had that happen to them. I know that I wasn't listening to Frank Sinatra when I was growing up, so the kids today are listening to their parents' music more and more, classic
Yeah.
rock and 80s new wave music, and it's great.
It's refreshing how music changes and evolves down the years.
It does. It's full circle.
And on your latest album as well, what can the listeners expect? Like, say, how many tracks are on there? Do they get their money's worth?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of tracks. There's a couple of surprises. We do a song in French that reflects our Canadian roots, and there's a cover of a John Lennon song, "Jealous Guy." I share a birthday with John Lennon, so he's always been very close to my heart, and the I think people will appreciate that version.
So that's like a fitting tribute in a way.
It does. He was a great songwriter, and like I say, one of the templates for my songwriting, and yeah, the whole album is just it's more Men Without Hats 80s music, the music that people love and expect from us. So
Mm.
we're not going to try and reinvent the wheel. We'll give them what they want.
And with the I Love the 80s, as you mentioned, it's a nice opening track. It's a strong icebreaker on the record.
It is. The hardest part about that track was bringing it down under 3 minutes and 30 seconds with all the 80s references that we wanted to stick in there. The song could have been an hour long. I guess we'll have to wait for the 12-inch remix that's coming soon.
Oh, wow. You don't get many 12-inch remixes these days. That's
You
fantastic.
don't.
And you mentioned the French one, Accords de Trois. What's that overall reaction being like from your friends, followers, and fans on that one?
It's great. Canada, I grew up in French. I did all my schooling in French. I studied law in the south of France, and my first wife was French from France. And but our we grew up in Montreal, which is predominantly a francophone city in the heart of North America. And the reaction's been great. People love it. People really are appreciative that we're doing stuff in French, though. So it's great.
And in Montreal, do they have like a French culture, like say, like in New Orleans?
Well, the whole city is French.
Ah,
The whole city. The signage is in French. There's French TV. It's the whole thing is. So I grew up. My parents were from. Well, I was born in Chicago, but my dad got a job at the University of Montreal so we moved there when I was very young. So I was sent to French school and studied in French all my life. My brothers and I. So it's great. It's our secret language when we go on tour.
That's cool. Also on the album, a penultimate track called Runaway. What does this song paint the picture for the listener? Did you feel it was a perfect penultimate track as well?
Yeah, no, it's all the tracks kind of fit together. It's all talking about, like I say, the past, but bringing the past up to the present and projecting it into the future and just giving the people more 80s music and the music that they love.
hmm And we were talking about how people's listening habits have changed over the years. A lot of independent artists, going freelance, releasing music themselves. Do you feel that's the way it's kind of going at the moment?
Well, technology has changed a lot. Back in the days when you wanted to make a record, it took it was quite a big thing. You needed a record label, you needed a big budget, a big studio, engineers, producers, guys to go out and make the coffee. You needed a whole bunch of things. Today, all you need is a laptop. Like a lot of great records are being made in someone's living room with a laptop. Myself personally, I do all my demos now, and some of the tracks are so good that they end up on the final mix. They end up on the final product. So that's one of the great things about technology, and it's fun to keep abreast of what's happening in that world, and it's a fun industry.
And mentioning technology as well, do you have like a favorite musical instrument or synth, like say like a Roland or Korg?
Well, I'm partial to I still have the original sequential circuits Prophet 5 that I recorded that used on the safety dance sessions. So I still use that one. I still pull it out and give it a whirl one now and then. But no, I've got a couple of new Moogs that I really like, and there's the that's one great thing about synthesizers. When during the 70s, when I was a teenager listening to music, synthesizers were out of reach, for musicians. They were just too expensive. They were in the realm of Rick Wakeman and Keith Emerson. You nobody could afford them. But in the 80s, they became affordable, and so a lot of bands started using them, and that's what sort of shaped the sound of 80s music was the fact that people could afford synthesizers and everybody started, every band kind of had a little synth and people were experimenting with them. That was made for an interesting new sound. It was great.
That's very fascinating. And I must ask, have you got any live shows or gigs planned for the rest of 2025, if not 2026, possibly?
Oh yeah, we've been busy all year. We just got back from the UK and Europe, and we just recently got back from touring the east coast of the United States with Wang Chung, and we were in Cancun for 80s in the Sands Festival with Howard Jones and Frankie Goes to Hollywood and a whole bunch of other bands. And we're off for a cross Canada thing now. We go down into the States a bit more and then end up on New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. So it's been a busy year, and next year looks to be just as busy. So we're happy.
Great, living the dream. Are you having a bit of a respite, Christmas, just to put your feet up for a bit, time out?
Oh yeah, we'll have a couple of days. I'm going to be a grandfather too in the beginning of December, so I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a life-changing event, and it's my first time as being a grandfather, so it's looking forward to that.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's everything I wanted to ask for you on today's show. Thanks for being a star and your contribution on today's show. One thing I always ask my guests is, do you have any social media you may like to share with my listeners? Fire away.
Yeah, for everything Men Without Hats, you can go to safetydance.com. You get merchandise, records, CDs, photos, band history, tour dates, tickets, everything at safetydance.com.
Great. Ivan Doroschuk on today's show. We got a new single out as well and new album, as we talked about on today's show. Thanks again. Thanks a million. You're a star.
Thank you very much. Nice talking.